Football is a beautiful game full of highs, lows, passion, and drama. Watching players competing to win the greatest prizes inevitably means there will always be a loser. It can be cruel, and sometimes it's even been a matter of life or death. And we're going to look at the most heartbreaking moments in football. Let's start with a moment seen across the world that was heartbreaking for a great in the game. Roberto Baggio's penalty miss. The USA World Cup in 1994 was a huge event. It was a tournament that really opened up the lure of soccer to the Americans and was a trailblazing television event for the iconic tournament. The final had the enticing glamour of a great Brazil team, including players like Romario, Dunga, and Bebeto, up against one of Italy's greatest teams, featuring Maldini, Baresi, and Roberto Baggio. The tournament just had Hollywood appeal and was filled with beautiful sunshine and summer atmosphere. That closely contested final went all the way to a penalty shootout, and that inevitably meant heartbreak was inevitable for someone as 2 billion people watched around the world. Damn, like a third of the world was watching. Roberto Baggio stepped up to take a penalty, knowing he had to score. Missing would hand victory to Brazil. Now, if there was one player in the whole damn stadium you wanted to take a penalty, it was Roberto Baggio. This guy almost never missed until that fateful day. He missed, Italy lost the final, and Baggio was completely heartbroken. His time for the Italian national team continued for another 10 years, but Italy really struggled in tournaments until winning the World Cup in 2006, after Baggio had retired. Gaza's Tears. The game as we know it was invented in England, and with that legacy comes a big weight of expectation on England's national team. The England team feels that expectation more than most teams, and for so long since their World Cup win in 1966, they have been disappointing. In the 1990 World Cup, the team managed by Bobby Robson had some great players like Gary Lineker and Paul Gascoigne. They had a tough-as-nails defense too. Paul Gascoigne was a special player when he was in the right frame of mind, and so much was expected from him as they faced Germany in the semi-final. The game was close, but Gascoigne picked up a yellow card and was immediately in tears. The booking meant he would miss the final, and Gaza couldn't hide that crushing realization, and his teammates were also heartbroken for him, but they still had a game to finish to even get to the final. Once again, England, the great specialists of tournament heartache, came up short in the penalty shoot when they lost to Germany. The Germans went on to win the final. Remember folks, give us a like, hit that subscribe button, and comment below. How heartbreaking are these moments? Christian Eriksen. Football is a tough sport with elite athletes who are super fit, but the body is a complicated and unpredictable machine. We've seen horrible moments with players collapsing on the pitch, from Fabrice Muamba to Marc-Vivien Foe, who collapsed and died on the pitch due to a heart-related condition. In 2021, during the Euros 2020 tournament, the world and a full stadium watched in complete horror as Christian Eriksen collapsed on the pitch. It was horrifying, especially for those watching in the stadium. Simon Kjær, Eriksen's teammate, was instrumental in saving Eriksen's life because he was technically dead for 3 minutes on the pitch, but Kjær performed CPR whilst they waited for the paramedics to arrive and take Eriksen to hospital. It was horrible to watch and to wait as Eriksen was taken away. Everyone was desperate to know if he pulled through. The match even carried on after a delay, despite the shock for both sets of players. Thankfully, Eriksen was stable and has since made a miraculous recovery thanks to having a pacemaker fitted. Fulham's heartbreak. Fulham are a club that bounced between the Premier League and the Championship, and their standing in the game rose significantly when they were owned by the late Mohammed Al Fayed, the former owner of Harrods. It's not often that Fulham push high up the Premier table, but they actually qualified for Europe in 2009 and saw an amazing run all the way to the 2010 Europa League final. This was by far the biggest moment in their history for a team that had never won a trophy. Their amazing run saw them get to the final against all odds and take Atletico Madrid right up to 4 minutes before penalties. But Fulham's hearts were broken when Diego Forlan scored a late winning goal, and sadly for Fulham, not many people remember they were a Europa League finalist. It's always the winners who go down in history. Steven Gerrard's slip. In 2020, Liverpool won the Premier League for the first time in 30 years, led by Jurgen Klopp. It feels like a crazy amount of time for a team that dominated so much of the 1980s. A few years before, with Brendan Rodgers in charge, Liverpool looked like they might win the Premier League, inspired by their midfield powerhouse Steven Gerrard. This guy was pure Liverpool, having come up through the academy, and he spent his entire 17-year career with them, despite so many chances to join teams like Real Madrid and Chelsea over the years. Although Gerrard won FA Cups, the Europa League, and most famously, the Champions League, the one he really wanted was the Premier League. In 2013-2014, it was the closest they came, and Liverpool were playing title rivals Chelsea in a game that would have a huge bearing on the trophy. Gerrard so rarely let his team down, but in a cruel twist, he slipped and lost the ball. Chelsea punished the mistake and scored, defeating Liverpool. Their title run then fell apart, and Manchester City won the league by 2 points. It was a heartbreak that still haunts Gerrard to this day. Andrea Pirlo's final heartbreak. There are few players as graceful as Andrea Pirlo. This guy was a legit baller who just floated around the pitch and could pass the ball any damn place he wanted. He was instrumental in winning the World Cup for Italy. This midfield maestro would have improved any team in the world at his peak. In 2014-2015, while playing for Juventus, Pirlo had a chance to finish his top-level career on a high. It was the Champions League final, and Pirlo knew he had a great chance to bow out by adding another winner's medal to his collection, but it would have also been his first European trophy with Juve. Up against Barcelona, Juve were the underdogs, facing Messi and Neymar's mighty Barca side. Sadly, Barcelona were in no mood to do any favors, and they won the game 3-1. It was a final match that felt unjust for such a magnificent player as Pirlo was. Ranieri's sacking. Claudio Ranieri is one of football's nice guys. He's one of the most likable characters in the history of the game, and a manager everybody wanted to do well. Ranieri was the man in charge when Roman Abramovich took over at Chelsea and turned them into major winners, but he was harshly replaced despite finishing second by Jose Mourinho. Okay, that paid off for Chelsea, and Jose won the title in his first season there. For Ranieri, though, his major moment was to come. He'd won trophies before, but what he would do with Leicester City was incredible. The previous season, Leicester had spent most of their time battling relegation before an impressive run in the final games. Their manager, Nigel Pearson, was unlucky to get sacked and replaced by Ranieri. He was seen as a strange choice, and fans weren't convinced he could be trusted to see the team through an expected relegation battle. Instead, despite odds of 5,000 to 1 to win the Premier League, Leicester performed that very miracle, and football's Mr. Nice Guy was on top of the world. But things changed the following season, and they couldn't maintain the same levels. In February of 2017, just 9 months after winning the Premier League, Ranieri was fired with Leicester hovering over the relegation zone. It was deemed harsh and incredibly sad for the club to do that to the man who won them the Premier League. Ronaldo's World Cup dream dies. Cristiano Ronaldo has won almost everything. The 2022 World Cup in Qatar was billed as the final chance for both Ronaldo and Messi to win that elusive trophy. Ronaldo went into the tournament with a whole load of drama too, after being sacked by Manchester United thanks to his crazy interview with Piers Morgan. His World Cup didn't go well though, and he had problems with the Portugal manager, who even dropped Ronaldo during one game. The team just couldn't perform, and Ronaldo wasn't in a good place. The team limped out of the tournament, and Ronaldo couldn't hide his heartbreak. He knew there was no way he'd be playing in another World Cup in his 40s. His final chance had gone, and it was heartbreaking. To make it worse, his big rival Messi did win the World Cup, finally ending their battle for ultimate GOAT status. Son injures Gomez. Son Heung-min is another nice guy in football. This dude is an honest player who works hard and plays with a smile. People love the South Korean icon, and he's not a player who would ever intentionally injure someone. When Tottenham played Everton, Son was left totally horrified and heartbroken after a challenge resulted in Everton's Gomez picking up a horrible injury. Son was in tears, completely distraught about injuring his opponent, even though it wasn't intentional. It was horrible to see both the impact of Gomez's injury and Son's horror. The last moments of two icons. Football in the past 60 years has been ruled by 4 icons. More recently, it has been Ronaldo and Messi. But before that, the 2 greatest players to play the game were Pelé and Maradona. Pelé was soccer's first GOAT and a player who did things no one else could. He won the World Cup and evolved soccer with the kind of skill that he could show. This was a guy who scored over 1,000 goals and was truly incredible. Sadly, his final months were spent in hospital with respiratory problems before he finally died peacefully with his family watching over him. Then there was Maradona, a player of extraordinary talent who could do the most dazzling things on a football pitch. His life was tarnished by his vices, and he struggled with drug and alcohol problems and weight gain in his later life. After a string of medical problems, Maradona sadly died after complications from brain surgery. He won the World Cup with Argentina and was also the driving force behind the greatest team in Napoli's history. 2 wonderful players of the game who ruled their respective generations but left us too soon. What is the most heartbreaking moment in football? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe.